Scorpio, the moment you read the words "two farewells and a destiny meeting," a part of you already knew this was about you. Not the surface you that gets through the day, but the deeper self that has been feeling an invisible shift building for weeks. You didn't click this video by accident. You were pulled here almost magnetically because your soul is standing at a crossroads, and November is the month the path ahead begins to rearrange itself. Right now you might feel a quiet heaviness you can't fully explain, a strange distance between you and people or roles that used to feel familiar, a sense that some version of your life feels like it's slowly loosening its grip. That's not your imagination, that's your spirit whispering it's time. This November isn't just another month on the calendar. It's a transition corridor, a threshold where two goodbyes and one fated encounter weave together to redirect your story in a way you'll only fully understand later. For now, all you need to do is stay with me, breathe, and allow this message to speak to the parts of you that are tired of pretending everything is fine. Because something in you is already done with the old chapter, even if your mind hasn't found the words yet. The first farewell is not to a person. It is to a role, a costume, a version of yourself that once kept you safe. You know exactly which one I'm talking about. The one who always held everything together while no one noticed you were unraveling inside. The one who became the problem solver, the emotional container, the unshakable rock, even when your own heart was quietly cracking. Maybe you stayed in an environment that drained you because you thought loyalty meant self-abandonment. Maybe you kept saying, "I'm okay," long after your nervous system had nothing left to give. Maybe you built your life around meeting everyone else's needs, just so you wouldn't have to face the ache of your own. That version of you was not weak or foolish. That version of you was brilliant at survival. They learned how to hold storms in their ribcage and still show up with a calm face. They learned how to be the strong one, the dependable one, the one people leaned on when things were falling apart. But Scorpio, the storm that required that level of survival, is ending. And the armor that saved you then is suffocating you now. This first goodbye is the moment you finally admit to yourself, "I can't keep living like this. I cannot keep carrying the weight of every room I walk into. I cannot keep saying yes when my spirit is screaming no." Letting go of this identity is not dramatic. It's subtle. It happens in quiet acts of courage. You pause for one breath before you automatically agree to help. You say, "I need a moment," instead of pushing yourself past empty. You choose a small act of tenderness toward yourself, where before you would have chosen punishment or pressure. You let yourself sit in silence in the morning instead of scrolling. You put your hand on your heart, and instead of criticizing yourself for being too sensitive or too much, you acknowledge how much you've carried. These tiny shifts are not meaningless. They are soul-level declarations. I am worthy of existing beyond survival. I am allowed to be more than what other people need from me. This first farewell might show up as a sudden boredom with old patterns, a deep fatigue with constantly saving situations that refuse to save themselves, a growing inability to pretend you're fine when you're not. It is your spirit unhooking from an identity that was built around enduring instead of living. This goodbye might feel like guilt at first. Who am I if I'm not the one always holding everything together? But beneath the guilt is freedom. You are not walking away from your strength. You are walking away from the belief that you must constantly suffer to prove you are strong. The second farewell moves closer to your outer world. This one is about a connection, a commitment or a structure in your life that no longer matches the person you are becoming. It might be a relationship that has been running on old agreements long after the love stopped growing. It might be a friendship where you are always the listener, but never truly heard. It might be a job that treats your talent as disposable while secretly relying on your magic to keep it afloat. It might even be a version of home that no longer feels like home. You've felt the cracks for a while now. Conversations that used to flow now feel forced or shallow. Your body tightens when you see a certain name on your phone. The thought of going to that place, attending that meeting, or playing that role fills you with quiet dread instead of purpose. There's nothing wrong on the surface that you can point to without feeling dramatic, and yet everything in your intuition says, this is over. The second farewell is rarely explosive. Sometimes people don't storm out of your life. They simply drift to the edges while your soul slowly steps back to the center. Sometimes the goodbye isn't spoken out loud. It happens in the moment you stop over-explaining yourself, stop shrinking your truth, stop chasing someone to offer you the bare minimum. This November, the emotional distance you've been feeling around certain connections is not a glitch, it's guidance. The universe is not trying to punish you by removing what no longer fits. It's trying to protect you from living the rest of your life stuck in rooms you've long outgrown. You may notice certain patterns becoming impossible to ignore. The jokes that are always at your expense, the subtle digs at your dreams, the way your energy crashes after seeing someone who claims to support you but secretly resents your glow. Or perhaps it's the silence, how no one asks how you're really doing, how your needs are never the center of the conversation. The second farewell is the moment you stop bargaining with that reality. You realize you don't have to gather a courtroom of proof to justify your intuition. You don't have to wait for a dramatic betrayal to bless your departure. You're allowed to let go simply because staying is slowly killing your spirit. And yes, there might be grief. You're allowed to mourn the future you once imagined with that person, that job, that version of your life. You're allowed to cry over the years you spent trying to fix something that was never meant to honor who you truly are. But grief is not proof you made the wrong choice. Grief is what happens when your soul finally moves in the direction of truth. Between these two farewells, there will be a strange in-between, a space where the old chapter is dissolving but the new one has not yet fully arrived. It might feel like floating between worlds, like walking through your life as if it were a movie you no longer feel scripted to play in. You may experience moments of deep loneliness, even while surrounded by people. You might feel tired for no obvious reason, as if your body is recalibrating from years of tension. In this space, your mind may try to pull you back. It will whisper, go back to what you know, even if it hurts. At least it's familiar. But Scorpio, your soul is asking for more. This corridor between endings is where your frequency changes. It's where the universe gently rearranges your timeline so that what's meant for you has a pathway to reach you. When you feel exposed, uncertain, or tempted to cling to old comfort out of fear, remember this: emptiness is not punishment. It is preparation. A garden needs cleared soil before new seeds can take root. And then, when you least expect it, the destined meeting begins to form. It may not arrive with a Hollywood soundtrack or a beam of divine light shining from the sky. It might begin with something simple, an unexpected conversation, a comment that lands in your chest, a new face that feels strangely familiar, an opportunity that makes your whole body say yes, even while your mind scrambles for reasons to be cautious. This destiny meeting may be a person, but it doesn't have to be only romantic. It can be a mentor, a collaborator, a friend whose presence feels like clean air after a lifetime of breathing smoke. It might be someone who enters quietly, without fanfare, and yet something about their presence feels like you finally found a language your soul has been trying to speak for years. With them, you don't feel the need to perform strength. You don't have to hide your scars. You don't feel smaller for sharing your dreams. You feel seen, not in a way that makes you dependent, but in a way that reminds you you were never too much. You were simply surrounded by people who didn't have the capacity for your depth. For others, this meeting might be with an opportunity or calling rather than a person, a project that pulls every gift out of your spirit, a place that feels inexplicably like home the first time you arrive, a path of study, healing, or creativity that feels like your entire life has been quietly preparing you for this. You might find yourself drawn to a particular field, spiritual practice or mission that suddenly ties together all the threads of your past pain and past effort in a way that finally makes sense. For so long, you thought the universe was random in what it took from you and what it allowed. But through this meeting, you begin to see you were being trained, not tortured. Every heartbreak softened you in the exact way needed to hold this future. Every disappointment redirected you away from timelines that could not contain your full becoming. You will know this encounter is part of your destiny, not because it is perfect or without challenges, but because you do not have to betray yourself to step into it. Your boundaries are honored instead of punished. Your intuition feels settled instead of anxious. You feel expanded, not diminished. There is a quiet sense of "I recognize this," even if you cannot explain why. This is your soul realizing that life does in fact meet you differently when you stop clinging to what was never meant to stay. The two farewells cleared the room. The meeting arrives because now finally there is space. As this November continues to unfold, you may notice subtle external confirmations of this inner shift. Numbers that repeat at just the right moment, phrases you keep hearing in different places, colors or symbols that seem to follow you. A certain song that always plays when you're on the edge of giving up, a recurring dream of doors, roads or trains, images of movement and transition. None of this is random. These are small mirrors, gentle nods from the universe to say you're not imagining this. Keep going. You might also feel a stronger pull towards solitude, not the isolating kind, but the sacred kind. Time alone where you can hear your own voice again. Time to journal honestly about what you're ready to release, about how you want to feel in your relationships, about what you will no longer negotiate with your peace. That is not you withdrawing from life. That is you returning to the center of your own energy, so you can lead from truth rather than reaction. Your body will speak during this season as well. Notice it, the way your shoulders tense around some people and soften around others, the way your chest tightens before certain commitments and relaxes when you imagine letting them go. The headaches that appear after conversations that secretly drain your spirit, the ease you feel when you picture yourself saying no where you used to say yes. Your nervous system is not your enemy. It is a messenger. When you honor its signals, you are not being dramatic, you are being honest. Drink more water than your anxiety thinks you need. Rest before exhaustion feels like collapse. Choose food, movement, and environments that calm rather than overstimulate you. These are not small acts. They are how you tell your soul, "I'm listening now." Emotionally, this month asks you to trade self-criticism for compassion. You might be tempted to look back at your past and judge yourself for staying too long, loving too hard, or ignoring red flags you now see clearly. But Scorpio, you did not fail. You loved from the level of awareness you had then. You stayed because a part of you believed that was the safest or holiest thing you could do at the time. Now that your awareness has expanded, your choices will too. That is growth, not shame. Speak to your younger self the way you would speak to someone you deeply love. "Thank you for getting me this far. I will take it from here." The two farewells are not rejections of who you were. They are acknowledgments that you are ready for more. Spiritually, you are being invited to trust timing in a deeper way, not as a slogan, but as a lived experience. There are things you asked for years ago that you were not yet ready to hold without losing yourself. There are doors that closed not because you were unworthy, but because accepting them would have tethered you to versions of you that were meant to die. As you move through this November portal, you are stepping into alignment with prayers you may have forgotten you prayed. Moments when you whispered, "I just want peace. I just want something real. I just want to feel like myself again." The path to those answers often begins with farewells, not because the universe is cruel, but because it refuses to decorate prison cells and call them destiny. So what do you do with all of this, Scorpio? You don't need a 10-step plan. You just need one honest step at a time. Name the first goodbye, softly, privately, even if only in your own journal. Acknowledge the version of you that is ready to rest, to stop performing strength as a shield. Then name the second farewell. It could be a habit, a dynamic, a routine, or a connection. You don't have to end it overnight, but you do have to stop pretending it still fits. Then open your hands, literally if it helps. Sit in stillness and say out loud, I welcome what aligns with who I am becoming. I no longer chase what asks me to shrink. This is how you meet your destiny halfway. This is how the universe recognizes that you are not just hearing the message, you are responding. And as we reach this moment together, feel how your energy has already shifted, even if just a little. Something in you that was clenched may have softened. Something foggy may feel just a touch clearer. That is not the power of my words. That is the power of your own soul remembering itself. This story you've just heard is not a fixed script carved in stone. It is more like a mirror held gently in front of you, a reflection of one possible path your energy is resonating with right now. Think of it as a sacred thought experiment for your spirit, a whispered possibility, not a rigid sentence. If this message resonates, if it feels like someone has quietly articulated what your heart has been carrying in silence, then keep the parts that feel true and let them guide your next gentle steps. If some parts do not fit your reality, let them drift away like clouds moving across a wide November sky, because not every story is written for every soul. This reading is here to remind you of the power that already lives within you. The power to let go with grace, to welcome aligned connection without abandoning yourself, to participate in the redirection of your own path. Take what serves your healing, leave what doesn't, and remember that your future is not being dictated to you. It is being created with you.